What up, meatheads? This is Travis Stockstill, aka American Butcher. Welcome to my super sounds of the 70s. Just joking. Hope everyone's enjoying their Super Tuesday. Let's get on with the show.
Good cutting enhances the quality of good meat. Poor cutting results in an inferior piece of meat, regardless of quality.
Today's episode of the Meat Block Podcast is brought to you by Bunzl Processor Division. Bunzl Processor Division has been in the food processing and packaging industry for over 140 years. That's right, they're celebrating their 140th this year. Congratulations. Happy birthday or anniversary. Offering over 35,000 of high-quality products designed specifically to meet the needs of meat processing, butchery, food processing, janitorial, and industrial industries. BPD also specializes in packaging equipment and supplies, offering multi-pack P-Series line of chamber packaging machines, as well as Clarity line of shrink bags, roll stock films, and vacuum pouches. They have numerous product experts on hand and offer outstanding customer service. They offer free UPS ground shipping on orders of $500 and more. And when you're placing your next order, which I know you will, let them know that you are a AAMP member. And if you're not an AAMP member, then you better be. If you don't know what that is, then Google it, and most likely you want to be it. That's the American Association of Meat Processors. It's a great resource, and being a member, it also benefits when you order from bunzlpd.com. And of course, you could check out that link in the show notes. All right, let me run this scenario by you. Let's say you're a game processor, and you're getting ready for your day. You're doing your mise en place. You're getting everything set. You have your first animal lined up and you go and grab that cut sheet. You look in the file. It's not there. You call the person, email the person. Then you notice that there is a message on the voicemail. And it is of the owner of that animal. And they say, just cut it like you did last time. You try calling them again because you have hard copy records. When was the last time they brought it done? 1, 2 years ago? After digging, you're assured that you found the right ones, but they say they want summer sausage, but you're out of summer sausage seasoning, or your shop no longer offers it. Right now, you have a much better sausage, but you want to make sure that they get what they want and that they're aware of this. How could you avoid this in the future? So, Smart Locker USA is an online tool for custom USDA and game processors to make sure that their customer gets what they want. So Meat Locker will help the back end work where a customer could log in, do the species, the lot number, the ID, and then fill out the cut sheet. Say if you're out of a sausage, you could go into your profile and take that out. Or if you add a new sausage, or let's say you change a cutting spec, it's just that easy. It's like placing an online order. There's check boxes and it won't let you move forward until it's complete. And if you use the promo code MEATBLOCK2023, you'll get $1,000 savings in 5 free months of Smart Locker. That's smartlockerusa.com. Check the show notes. Please, supporting our sponsors is supporting the show. And I look forward to seeing you in the reviews and comments. And here we go. Nothing like sitting in front of a microphone, not knowing what you're going to say to really motivate you. Lots been going on. I've been doing a lot of practice for the United States Butcher Team. If you didn't know I was on that, then this is probably your first time listening to the show, or you just don't pick up on through lines or subtext or, things like that. Maybe your name's Jeremy And if you don't get that joke, then I encourage you to go back and listen to every single one of my episodes, especially the episode titled Jeremy. When I recorded that Jeremy episode, my brother said, "Why don't you play Jeremy spoke in class today at the end?" And I was thinking, because in that song, Jeremy comes back and would kill me if that was a real life. And I would like to think that Jeremy wouldn't kill me, but probably if you listen to that episode and how I felt about all the Jeremys in the world out there, then maybe they would. That's the sound of a good episode. Chingle changle, baby. I've always been in the trades. I've always been working class. I've romanticized the working class lifestyle. Embraced it when I was like 21, when I was a tile setter and I was old enough to drink. I'd get my paycheck and I'd go to the bar at lunch with my coworkers, and this plate, forget the bartender's name was Pat, and it was over there off Turnpike in Santa Barbara. It was in the middle, in between Goleta and Santa Barbara. And I was working on a tile setting crew, so we're always mobile. And all the little dives, we'd meet up after work. Back then, you could smoke in bars, not legally, but without getting into relatively any trouble. And I embrace the hard-working men mentality of construction. And after a hard day's work, you go and you have yourself a cocktail and you go and do this. And that reminded me of when I wanted a day off. That's why I told this nonsensical story where I'm telling it, is I would wait till about 5:30. Keep in mind, I'm 21. I wouldn't do this today. I'm an adult with children and a mortgage. But back then I was living in what I would describe as a crack house without the luxury of crack to help you escape. It was just a flop house for bands and travelers and gypsies and vagabonds, and just like we hung out, partied till all hours of the night, and then went to our jobs the next day. But when you're knew it was going to be a rager, and knew you were going to be taken out of town, I would call my boss when I needed a day off on short notice to wait until about 5:30, 6 o'clock mark. And I'd hear that in the background. And I'd be like, "Oh, hi, Bill. It's Travis. Just calling to remind you that I that I have tomorrow off. I requested it 2 weeks ago, and I just wanted to, just let you know not to expect me." And he'd be like, think for a second. Be like, "Oh, yeah. That's right. Yeah, I knew, but thanks for the heads up anyway. All right. Enjoy whatever it is you planned on doing." Dyslexia. I was diagnosed with dyslexia when I was in the first grade. I'm the youngest of three boys, all three of us dyslexic. The jury's still out on whether or not my parents are dyslexic. My mom will tell you my dad's dyslexic, and my dad will tell you my mom is, vice versa. I feel I am all right at reading. My written word is atrocious. Handwriting and legibility, even if you get past the handwriting for it to make sense and for me to use proper punctuation is to be unexpected. Certainly doesn't mean that I'm not smart. Maybe I'm not. I don't know. I got distracted moving some scratcher tickets off my computer that my son was playing with earlier because I let him gamble even though he's 4. Just risky lifestyle here. Kids are kids. Kids are assholes. I do everything I can not to raise a little asshole, to raise a polite, caring, respecting, loving human being. That being said, I feel like I was raised with all those things as well. And I feel like every kid is. I feel like no parent wants to raise an asshole. But kids are. Especially when someone is different. Being dyslexic isn't really that different. Like, a large percentage of the population have dyslexia, or some learning disability, or in one way or the other. So now it's almost passé, along with mental illness. And trust me, in this episode, those two will intermingle as well as addiction. Imagine a party that is my brain, is my inner thought, and then you have dyslexia, insecurity, addiction, which is liquid courage that will help insecurity, mental health, a diagnosis of being bipolar that amplifies the addiction, depression, the ADD, etc. It's a fun party. What does this have to do with butchering, the meat block, and all that stuff? I'm getting there. Also, pump the brakes. It's my show. If you remember, I did an episode about music with Brian Mayer. So right now, the only catalyst for an episode is that a butcher is on it. I used to take tests in the resource office with Mrs. Chase. Starting in 3rd grade, I would go down there, standardized testing. I'd spend the entire day down there. This kid, William, which is also my middle name, said loud enough for me to hear as I was leaving to go to the resource room. Psh, you know, they just give him the answers there anyway. Several years of confusion and frustration about why I couldn't read as well as everyone else boiled at that point. I laid in wait. I went to the resource room, took my test. I'm not going to lie, but there is a half-truth in that statement, where they certainly did not give you the answers. I was smart as fuck, but if I was struggling on one, they would say, Travis, is it A, B, C, or D? And then you fill it out. Because my resource involved someone reading me the test and me filling it out. And then when it came to essays, me dictating. So dictating answers never prepared me for punctuation mistakes. In my entire educational life, from the time I was in elementary school until I graduated high school, it was tutors all the way through junior high, and then tutors turned into girlfriends that I dictate papers to. And even still to this day, I have my wife look over resumes. So when it comes to punctuation and proper use of words, I rely on someone else's hand to do the heavy lifting. But during recess that day, I went up to William and asked him what he said. And he, with the confidence of a 3rd grader, repeated it louder. And then I punched him in the face. As hard as a 2nd grader could punch a 2nd grader. It was also right in front of his mother, who was a playground supervisor. She only worked a half hour a day. I still have resentment over that moment, shaping the course of my emotional life for my entire life. A few more incidences like these, and I found myself going to therapy. My therapist's name was Andy. He was, back then, probably in his late to early 50s. I don't know. I was a kid. I'm sure at one point he reached his 50s because I saw him for like 7 years. Being a product of television in the 80s and horror craze, movies like The Exorcist and Poltergeist prepared me for such interactions with playing with toys in front of a one-way mirror, or looking at Rorschach tests or enjoying and humoring Andy's atrocious magic act. It was actually really good, and I don't know how he did most of his tricks. It's just one time he tipped his cards a little too much metaphorically, and I discovered the trick in the outcome, and it made me think less of the entire magic show after that. And this is coming from a 4th grader. And he told my mom about one of our sessions. He never talked about what we were actually talking about, but just that it's hard to get a lot of kids to come out and be emotional or to talk about their emotions. And he said, all Travis does is, it's hard to get him to digress. He's very emotional. I was very confused by what that said, but I remember it sticking with me. I was 24 years old. The year was 2007. Building on the precipice on one of the defining moments that would outline who I am today. Me and my friends were mostly homebodies, in the sense that we would stay home, get drunk, then go to work. And on the weekends, we'd go to dive bars. We ventured out to the downtown scene, where I met a girl. It was a one-night stand, but it lasted 1 year. But she was great. She was beautiful. She had an amazing best friend. It was love at first sight. The 3 of us would be up all night, hanging out, partying, essentially having threesomes. Then a turn happened in my life where I started paying attention to this friend without her around, and it was just me and the friend. And that friend became my best friend and everything I wanted. And this is a metaphor, and I'm talking about cocaine. No, I was not in a polyamorous relationship when I was 24 years old. I was certainly not be that lucky. So from here on out, I will just refer to cocaine as cocaine. And the girl, I won't give her a name because one, people change, and that's just how life is. And two, I don't want to. My goal is not to speak negatively. It's just to relay this story in relation to the bigger story and the impact of it on my life. So we were high maintenance machines that feeded off dysfunction, I guess. That we were the life of the party, but we were also the people there when it's like, all right, the party's over, and these guys are here, just doing drugs now. All right, you know the sun's up, right? She came from money in the sense of being independently wealthy, where she didn't really have to work. I was raised upper middle class, but decided to make my life much harder when I didn't go to college and needed to go out there into the real world and find work. And my real world was manual labor, and it still is. If you think about it to this day, that butchery is manual to some sense. And at the time, I was making great money. 2007, nothing could stop us. Houses are going up, people are remodeling, cocaine's flowing, everyone's having a good time. You know, construction, houses are going up, cocaine's flowing, everyone's having a good time. You know, construction, blah, 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 blah. Everything is going great. Everyone's having a good time. I had friends who graduated college who were entering the workforce when the 2008 recession hit. I was making more money than them without debt. But the YX line passed years later in life, just going straight off comparison, which is never good to compare yourself to other people. But eventually, the 2008 crash affected me. My only problem with cocaine is I got to the point where I couldn't afford to have it. When you want something you can't have, that problem becomes a big fucking problem. And money was a huge issue, and money was a catalyst for a lot of emotional arguments that I had with my partner at the time. I remember we were out to eat and I was talking to her legit friend. I'll say her name because she fucking sucks, Sally, about how I'd love to own a Craftsman or Victorian. And, I was a tile setter. I was making good money. And then she looked at me and she was like, how's that going to happen? How do you think you're ever going to own property? And it hurt. And I was like, oh shit, I am just. And then that turned into anger, which turned into spite, which I have found to be one of my number one motivators in life. After a heated argument with my partner, I decided to go outside for a cigarette. And it was raining, not for dramatic effect. It just actually was. It was one of the few times it rained in Santa Barbara. It was in December, mid-December. And I was so stressed about money, the looming, downsizing, hours being shaved, people being replaced in the trades, and mixed with sheer paranoia. And I decided to do one of the most selfish things I have ever done, which is not necessarily a bad thing. Everything people do is inherently selfish. Selfish doesn't have to necessarily be bad. But what I did was ask for help. I called my mother and, how close my mom lived at the time. I was living on the backside of the mesa, and you just take Camino Cielos down, and you could pick me up within 2 minutes if you get into a car. So sending out that call in the dark before my second cigarette was done, my parents had came and picked me up, and I was on my way to rehab, where I was diagnosed with bipolar, manic depression, whatever you want to call it. Then I started my love affair with therapy again. Again, it was brought up that I was too emotional, that I was this and that. And after struggling to find work and with this new diagnosis and outpatient programs and all that fun stuff, and now there's no work. We're full on in the death throes of 2008 collapsed economy. And I can't find fucking anything. Luckily, I had some money saved up. I was able to do a little bit of traveling and soul searching. Lived on the road, touring in a band across America for a while. Spent some time in Southeast Asia. Just average spiritual bullshit that people do. Then my choices were use my bipolar status to get on SSI or find work. And there was none. In a casual conversation, my brother jokingly said, "Hey, I got a job for you out here in Vermont." And just every time we talk, he just nag it and said, "Your start date's this, your start date's that, da, 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 da. It's here, don't worry." And I tell him, "Nah, I'm good. I found some, a gig where I worked the door and bar backed at a place." And he's like, "Is that really the best place for you? Why don't you just come out to Vermont?" And knowing that I could not support a lifestyle or even support being a roommate on what I was making in Santa Barbara, I said yes. I landed at Boston Logan Airport around 6 a.m. My brother picked me up and we went to work. On my way there, he said, "Stay out here for 3 years and you'll be a butcher. Don't get stuck out here. Don't fall in love. Don't get anyone pregnant." So I decided to turn off my emotions. And it's not easy. But that and killing animals day in, day out for who knows how long helped. I would go to bed and I'd have reverse affirmations, or my affirmations, I guess, were affirmations, but just fucked up. It's just like, don't fall in love. Don't get stuck out here. Don't fall in love. Don't get stuck out here. Fuck everyone. Fuck everyone. Fuck everyone. I would retell phrases that I've heard that people would ask, what's it like working in a slaughterhouse? And I'd be like, a lot of people have jobs where what's keeping you at the office is paperwork. My paperwork is just walking around outside. You would distance yourself from what you were actually doing, and me with that response of trying to actively turn off my emotions. Probably not the most healthy thing, but certainly the Depakote and Seroquel and Trilaptol all helped. Pristiq and Xanax were also in the mix at some point as well. Not only was the economic collapse horrible for people financially, but it was also the time when doctors just loved giving out things that would ruin people's lives. My wife and I were running a USDA cut and wrap and slaughter unit in northern Washington. You could pretty much spit and see Canada at the same time. I guess it would be spit and hit Canada. When she gave birth to our son, the mantra was over years ago when I met her working retail in LA. I know there's a lot of locations and time jumps in this episode, but if you're a friend of the show, then, well, you should know that by now. And once I became a father, slaughter lost a lot. I don't know what it lost, but it just made me start thinking things differently. I had no problem still doing it, and I still do it from time to time. I don't want you to think that I'm some cuck. But gutting lambs and gutting smaller animals certainly reminded me of, I don't know, my more protective instinct now that I was a father. When I found out my wife was pregnant, we were living in a condo and commuting 40 minutes to work. The condo was owned by her parents and was free, but that finding that out forced us to get financially sound and we bought our first house, fuck you, Sally, and bought a dog, Milo, a Labradoodle we got from a breeder in Oregon. I got out of the slaughter part of the industry and started working exclusively in the cut and wrap added value side. When Milo was a puppy, he was out for a walk and got attacked by a pit bull and had to get several stitches. And way too early, he stopped being the loving puppy and more of the always on guard dog. It took a couple months to get him to, go outside and walk on a leash and go up to other dogs without being terrified. And I would work with him with the clicker and teach him commands and try to get him to be a good dog. But when strangers would come around, he would be too hyper and too interactive and essentially a bad dog. He was very curious because he was a puppy. And when he was about 1.5, we decided to get another dog, Max, in hope to give him a companion and to calm some of that, burn off some of that energy, I guess. We moved to, or we bought a second house, or our next house, I don't know what you want to phrase. I don't own two houses. Here on the beach in Washington. Again, fuck you, Sally. It's a Craftsman. And we let the dogs run around and play. They'd go up to strangers, and Max would just want to be pet. Milo would just bark and jump around them, and we'd always tell them, "Don't worry, he's just playing. He's not going to bite you. He's just playing. Don't worry." To further calm that energy, we got Milo fixed, hoping that would have a effect on his rambunctiousness. We had taken him to the groomer, and one time he came back and he had like a little bit of blood on his nuts where I think he got nicked. And then the next time I took him to a groomer, he was all good and he was playing. And then when it came to like actually groom, he got really aggressive and started showing teeth and growling. Again, not biting, but this was also new to see this. And we made an appointment with an actual trainer to help us at this point deal with our dog. And he was great with the trainer, very receptive, and would listen and wasn't aggressive. He was just just wanting attention. So I had to work with him on some things. And then he started getting more protective of if he was chewing on a bone or if he was sitting someplace. And I don't know if this is because we had our second dog, Max, and he wanted to have space that was outlined his, but it was always aggression towards me. And I felt bad, but again, he was not like didn't bite me or anything. And then he got out and jumped the fence and was just running around, and a person walked by, and it was one of those things where it's like, oh, don't worry. He won't bite you, but he did. And then I had a bunch of long conversations with my wife about this. And we're like, well, he can't go out unless he's on a leash. And I talked to the person. She's one of our neighbors, and she was really nice and sympathetic and didn't want anything financially or otherwise. And I apologize to the point of nauseam of just saying, like, I'm so sorry. You deserve to be able to walk around and feel safe in your neighborhood. You deserve all this stuff. And it was embarrassing, and it was all these things, but we took all these measures of like, all right, the doors will be locked. He will be out on a leash. He will do this and everything we can to, protect ourselves. Because a big conversation me and my wife were having where it's like, if he bites someone, everything we've worked hard for, our craftsmen, our house, our this, whatever, all these things, we could just lose them like that because don't know how to lock a fucking door. And we don't know how to do this. And I would, be like, all right, if he goes outside, then he could only need some muzzle. We need to get a muzzle. That's the rule now. And I got one and try to put it on him. And dogs are smart. Every time he would see that thing, he would run and hide. And if dogs are backed in a corner, aggressive ones, they'll show their teeth, they'll bark and they'll growl, and they'll snap at you. So everything time it would come out. It was just like, oh, this is the time I'm going to do everything I can to not put that on. So it's fine. No muzzle. You're a leash only dog. And if you need to go outside, you're just on a leash until we build a yard. That's just how it is. Everything was going good. He'd still growl at me when I try to get him to move. But afterwards he would put his head on my lap and this look of like, I'm very sorry. And then my 2-year-old opened the door one day and he just beelined it to a person who happened to be walking on the beach and bit the sleeve of their shirt, not them. And I was mortified. My wife has to go out and get him because at this point he doesn't respond to me. And each time he's digressing, and I heard it's a sign of, overbreeding. I've heard that there's just like bad genetics and aggressives and things like that. But I wanted to think that with the training and all this, these rules, and like, cause he could sit, he could stay, he could lay down, he could shake, he could do all the things when he wanted to. His reward was play. Sometimes he just didn't feel like playing. Now at this point, it's just, I don't know what to do. It's that whole thing of like, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. And this was like 2 times within 2 months, or no, 2 times, within 2 months. And so it's like at this rate, when he's, dogs could live up to 14 years. And it's perpetually getting worse and more violent and more aggressive. It's like, statistically, we're going to lose this game. He's going to bite a kid. He's going to growl at someone. He's going to, or where the decision won't be ours to make what to do with him. We made an appointment to have him go to a rehab center for aggressive dogs. And I'd send him there, surrendering ownership of him. And the appointment was scheduled in the books, and I, had it on my calendar. And the build up to that appointment, Milo got himself a diaper. My son's potty training right now, so he still wears diapers at night, and got himself a diaper. And just, I tried to get it out from him, and he bit me and like growled and got like real mean, and it didn't die down instantly. I pretty much had to bait him with something else to stop him from ripping this diaper apart. If you've ever seen a ripped up diaper, it's fucking gross. There's this like crystal gel shit that goes everywhere. So I had to essentially reward him with something to prevent him from making a mess after being bitten by him. And afterwards, I'm laying there, and my wife is just looking at me like this appointment can't come soon enough. And Milo jumps on the bed and puts his head on my chest and just looks at me. And he was sorry. He was regretful, and he knows that like he messed up. The appointment came, I took him. And during the intake, when the person came into the room, he growled and barked and showed his teeth. And then we changed locations where I would bring him into a room with them, because we didn't want his protectiveness to be of the space that he was in for the last 20 minutes. And it seemed to do fine. They worked with him and gave him some cheeses, and I was filling out all the paperwork while he was going through all the, the steps and things like that of surrendering ownership and saying what he liked and what he didn't like, and trying to sell him the best I could, because it's weird, because it's like he would sleep in my son's bed and he would lay with my son. He would never do anything to hurt my son, but like I want to say he's great with kids, but he's great with my kid. I don't know. And I don't know if this was something he was ever going to grow out of, and I never wanted to ever be put in this situation. And they came back, and I had the paperwork signed out and filled out about great with kids and all this stuff. And she just said he's too aggressive. He tried to bite us, and our staff is our number one priority. And he's a very loving dog. It's very clear that he loves you. But we just can't take him in any other rehab shelter. It's most likely going to tell you the same thing. So I essentially only had like one option. If you're listening to this and you say like, oh, you had this and da, 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 da. Honestly, keep it to your fucking self. I don't care. I don't want to know. Like, this is, yeah. I took him to the animal shelter where they tried to adopt animals out. I had friends say that they would take him, but honestly, I couldn't burden them. I didn't want Milo to be part of my life adjacent, and then just knowing his pattern and his behavior perpetually getting worse, I didn't want to make that happen. I didn't want the liability. I wanted a third-party entity to relieve me of liability. I wanted documents and shit like that. But also just didn't want to know the responsibility of someone coming into work being like, oh, your old dog, had to get stitches because of him. Thanks. Or something like that. So I take him to the animal shelter, and at this point I'm been tearing up most of the day, just off and on. And then I just say, they're like, why are you here? I say, I need to surrender my dog. And Milo's standing with me, and he starts growling. And I'm like, well, if your dog's aggressive, our only solution is euthanasia. And I was so close to just telling that lady, like, hey, do you know what? Can't you see the tears in my fucking eyes, you fucking cunt? You need to work on your fucking bedside manner. I didn't say that, and she ended up actually being very supportive. She was just saying, like, this is just like our thing, we'll try to adopt him out. But we got to think about safety, and I'm filling out all this paperwork about his commands and his history and his temperament. And it's like, yeah, he has a shitty temper, but like also like he's really sweet and he's really nice, and he plays with my son. And yeah. When I handed the leash over, it was like, when I started recording this, I had this whole precipice of all of this, and it was like years of me turning off my emotions suddenly turned it back on. It was like every animal that I ever slaughtered and never gave a fuck about. Just everything just came rushing at me. And that look that the confusion on an animal's face right before they get killed, or when they walk into a new place and you just see it. I saw it on my dog, and I still feel horrible. And I yeah. I talked to Brian Mayer about this, and he just said, you're just projecting, that didn't happen, and and all that stuff. And I know he's right, but like, it hurt. I ugly cried in front of a lot of strangers and in my car. And when I talked to my wife, it was like the first time I cried in like 12 years. It was awful. Not 12 years. I think it was the first time I cried since rehab. And yeah, I guess the moral is you can't change how you feel, and you shouldn't try to, because it's certainly not healthy. I think it related a lot with my dog is because we were both very emotional people, even though I tried to hide it for a long part of my life. And my affirmation and mantra was certainly really unhealthy. And I'm still trying to find a balance with what is healthy mentally. It's hard. I don't know. Certainly finding my emotions that day, like I still feel like a piece of shit. I still very much am hopeful. They said they were going to do everything they could to adopt him out, and they have this long waiting period and all that it wouldn't be right away that they would work with them. But it's just like I don't know. It hurts. Still hurts. Yeah. All right. If you are my friends and family, I'd appreciate it if you don't tell my wife about this story, because she probably didn't know I was going to tell it. And yeah, I'm sorry. This episode was weird and a bummer. But if you're a fan of the show, please like and review us on all platforms, just like this review from Monster ZX 6R. I guess it's a motorcycle thing. This podcast is the worst thing I've ever listened to. These guys have absolutely zero clue about the meat industry. Just because you work here doesn't make you a professional. You sure throw some words in there, but have no knowledge of how it actually works. Do better research than podcast. Trash. So if you love the show like that guy, then please leave a review. I don't care what the review says, as long as it's 5 stars. Anyway, until next time, keep your knife sharp and live in the margin. A little something extra. Now I'm going to read an excerpt on some of my writing. Here you go. Dyslexia. Radio. The music selection got better when my brother became in charge. Everyone got to put a radio station of their choice on Pandora Shuffle. So everyone was happy. One song could be AC/DC, then Metallica, followed by Waylon Jennings, and ending with Maroon 5. The only time we had to adjust the rule is when our trimmer, named Justin, chose the station of dubstep. Everyone would be in a great mood, grooving and singing to Come On Eileen or something from today's Top 40, with anticipation of what the next great hit would be. Then all of a sudden, a bass drop, boom, and a high-pitched squeal. The sound like a speaker blowing out. Everyone pretended to like it for a while. Then finally my brother said, "I'm sorry, Justin, but this is fucking terrible," and removed the station and gave him the chance to pick another station. He decided to pick Hank Williams III. That's just rough, let's call it 40 grit, rough draft. All right. If you listen to this, then good for you.